Hey, this is Craig. If you like this show and you want to support it and you want to keep it free, head on over to everyonelovesguitar.com/support. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/support. If you're a business owner and you want to increase your cash flow, or if you're a label or artist and you want to promote new music, then listen up. For information about advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, including information on geographically targeted ads, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. If you want to buy or sell a home or investment property and you're here in the Tampa Bay area, in Hillsborough, Pinellas, or Pasco counties, then listen up. West Florida Real Estate is a local residential real estate broker that's helped over 250 Bay Area homeowners buy and sell their properties in the last 4 years alone. If you're looking to sell, you'll want to get their free report, The 7 Biggest Mistakes Homeowners Make When Hiring a Realtor. And if you're looking to buy a property, you definitely want to get your hands on the 21 Most Expensive Mistakes Tampa Home Buyers Make When Buying a Home. Each one of these reports is going to save you time and money. Inside, you'll discover the 7 most important things to consider when hiring a realtor, what to do if you're buying and selling a home at the same time, and the danger of choosing a realtor who agrees with everything you say. To get your hands on these free reports, head on over to westfloridarealestate.com. That's westfloridarealestate.com. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. We got one of the coolest jazz players from New Jersey on our show today. We're with Pete McCann, and Pete just kicked his landscaper's ass because he was making too much noise. I was really impressed with that, and he shoot him away. Anyway, before we get started, I just want to say a couple of quick announcements. Jack Broad, thank you for hooking us up. And also, today, Jack and Yvette are getting married. So I wish you many, many years of health and happiness and love and wedding bliss and all that good stuff, and like great sex on the honeymoon and continued after that. So peace. Thanks, Jack, and congratulations to you guys.
Yeah, Jack.
Probably more than you wanted, but hey, I said I'd give you a shout out for your wedding. Pete McCann, an Eau Claire, Wisconsin native jazz guitarist. Pete McCann has been an integral part of the New York City jazz scene for over 25 years. He just released Pay For It on the Other Side, which is his 6th recording as a band leader. He's a sought-after sideman from duos to big bands, and he's got a unique and wide-ranging set of musical skills. He's played guitar on over 100 CDs and performed in every type of venue, from jazz clubs to jazz festivals, schools to concert halls, and even Carnegie Hall. He traveled to 18 countries and played in almost every state in the USA. Hey, quick question about Carnegie Hall. In 1976, I was in Bronx Borough-wide playing tenor sax, and we played at Carnegie Hall that year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And do they still have the book? You know, we all signed in this book, which was like if you had to close your eyes and think, what did the original like 10 Commandments or whatever biblical shit, it was like massive. Do they still have that?
To be honest, I just played Carnegie Hall on Sunday night, and I didn't see the book anywhere. So either the book has been.
Oh, it's probably digitized now, man.
Yeah, it's probably sign a digital thank you
thumbprint,
something.
Here's your thumbprint. Yeah, but it was really cool.
Yeah. That's great.
Pete's also performed and or recorded with Kenny Wheeler, Dave Liebman, Lee Konitz, Patty Austin, Brian Blade, Bobby Pravit, Grace Kelly, the Mahavishnu Project, and the Maria Schneider Orchestra. He's currently working in groups led by, I'm going to screw up one of these names, I'm just giving you a heads up, Melissa Stilianu, Jocelyn Medina, Joe Fiedler, Spin Cycle, Ben Kono, Dan Wills, Pete Mills, Chris Terry, the Breithaupt brothers. Did I get that right?
Breithaupt
brothers, and orchestras led by Mikipa Miyajima. Yeah, what Pete said. Okay, Chris Vizoir. As a commercial recording artist, he's worked on projects for CNN, BBC, Sesame Street, and IBM. He got his Bachelor's of Music degree from the most famous school of, this is probably the most, I guess Berkeley, University of North Texas is hugely popular. There's so many great musicians graduating from there. And he's taught at NYU and currently does teach at each of these places, the New School, City College, and Maine Jazz Camp. Pete, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you coming here and beating up your landscaper just for this.
He was very nice about it.
Was he? Yeah, he came. We got it pretty quickly. Hey, what prompted you to move to New York City from Wisconsin? and maybe you probably moved there from Texas even. What was the biggest adjustment you had to make once you got there?
Well, when I was going to school at North Texas, all the seniors would always graduate and move somewhere, and half of them would always end up saying, "Oh, I'm going to move to New York and give it a go," or the other half would join the Woody Herman band. A couple friends of mine did that. Tony Scher,
I know Tony,
guitar player. He joined the Woody Herman band.
Great player, bass player. He plays bass with Bill Frisell, doesn't he?
Yeah. But he also plays killing guitar, and he sings too. It's like, come on, enough already.
I spoke to him a couple of times, and I wanted to have him on this show, and I guess he's really shy. And he goes, "Look, man, I love your show. I listen to it, but I would never, I could never go on there." So he said he's not interesting enough. I'm like, dude, you play with famous people, the jazz guys in the world. Believe me.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so you half of them go to Woody Herman, and half of them move out,
or Maynard Ferguson. That was another, he was still around. So I did the typical thing. Once I graduated, I wanted to get some money before I moved to New York. So I jumped on a cruise ship for an entire summer after I graduated. It was still then called Princess Cruises, and it was left out of Vancouver and went through the Inside Passage of Alaska and then back down. So once a week, it would go up to Skagway and come all the way back down. It was really awesome. I was able to save $3,000 in 14 weeks, and I flew back down to Texas. I picked up my Toyota, and then I drove all the way from Denton, Texas, to Pennsylvania, and stayed at my friend's house, who had also graduated. And then another friend of mine drove up in his car, and we all kind of drove to New York and started looking for an apartment.
So three of you guys moved in as roommates together?
Yeah, three of us.
That's cool, man.
All North Texas guys. We moved into a single detached house in Elmhurst, Queens.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Well, it was great until we got robbed 2 years later.
Oh man, someone broke in?
Yep, somebody broke in. They were casing our house for a long time. I had 3 guitars stolen. My very first ever electric guitar, which was a 72 Les Paul with mini soap bar pickups, a brand new 91 Strat with lace sensor pickups, which I loved. I'd just gotten it, but I was coming back from a gig in Boston, and my roommates had already left for a gig in Long Island. And just in 20 minutes, whoever has been casing our house was able to pop in the little back window and come in through the back and lift all of our stuff. And they never even went to the basement. My roommate drummer he had more expensive gear in the basement. He had brand new Yamaha drums and cymbals, and they left all of that. They didn't even go down there. My saxophone playing roommate had 3 horns on sax stands. They didn't take those. They knew that I had guitars. They went into the room where my guitars were, took all of them. Oh. And then I came home and I was like, oh no.
That's so devastating, not just financially, but emotionally, especially the first guitar you had. Yeah.
Because at that point I'd been in New York for 2 years. I was working a day job. I was kind of bummed, the scene's hard when you first get here. And back then it was still pretty kind of an unsafe place. It was kind of the tail end of the time that crack ruined everything in Manhattan. And I was in Queens, which was also at that time pretty rough. It was before Rudy Giuliani became mayor and put 40,000 cops, or not 40,000, I think 10. His promise was, I'm going to put 10,000 new cops on the streets, which he did. And, and he signed a couple deals with whoever was working for Disney, and they totally disrupted 42nd Street, and and all the porn shops left.
Oh yeah.
Drug guys left, and within about 10 years the place was just dramatically different. But
so this is in the early 80s or late 80s?
This was in I moved here in late fall of 89, and our house was broken into right around Thanksgiving of 91. So yeah, we were there for 2 years, but we liked the house. It didn't have any bars on the window or anything. It was just a house in Elmhurst, Queens.
Sure.
But it was devastating. And I called my best friend, Scott Newman, had been a drummer, also went to North Texas. We played in a band down there together for a couple years, and he was like, "Oh man, don't let that New York voodoo stuff get you down. You know, come on to my house, we're gonna get drunk."
He's right, man, because
So,
New York's I mean, you got to roll with the punches because shit like that happens. You know that, man.
He was like one of the determining factors, because I called my mom and I said, "Mom, I might just get in my car and drive home." I told her what happened. She's like, "Well, whatever you do." And I called Scott, and we just ended up partying, and so I stuck it through. And my two roommates, one of them moved out to Long Island. Actually, both of them at the time moved out to Long Island. The drummer was playing in Maynard Ferguson's band, so he didn't want to exactly just get up and leave. And the sax player was still doing a day job. But they moved far out into Long Island. I stayed in Queens, and I found new roommates and moved into a more secure apartment. But I'm glad I stuck it out, because it could have been a different story.
What? And you've been married 23 years, you said before we started, so that wouldn't have happened. So it's all worked.
Yeah, exactly.
What was it a big transition, like culturally, sort of, from Eau Claire, Wisconsin? I don't know where Eau Claire is, but I got to assume it's nothing like Elmhurst or Manhattan. Yeah.
It's a small town. That's a city of about 60,000 people.
Okay, so it's small.
It's actually the music scene was great there when I was growing up. There was a place called the Civic Center, which had a hotel, a small theater attached to it, and a bar where they had music 7 nights out of the week. So when I was 16, I had this teacher, and he said, "Well, you should try to get some gigs." So I hooked up with these University of Eau Claire kids who were playing music at this bar, and they were like, "Man, you should play with us." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm only 16. I can't really be in this bar." So they made a deal with the guy who ran the bar that I could play on the stage, but as soon as the breaks were happening, I'd have to go out in the hotel lobby and sit in the couch and not be in the bar.
I know. I hear this all the time from other guys. Yeah, but what a great experience it was playing with older guys, man. That had to be wonderful.
I was thrilled to death. I learned so much about playing music and doing gigs and being prepared. We all had our real books, and we had our music stands. And
you were playing jazz?
Yeah, we were just playing jazz. It was great. I mean, and that band, did some recording, reel-to-reel recording with 4 tracks, and we did some gigs, and it was like a really eye-opening experience.
Were you always into jazz then, even as a kid?
Yeah, I think so, because it all started when I was in the 7th grade. I'd been taking lessons since I was 8 years old, just going through different music teachers at Morgan Music in Eau Claire, and I finally got to a college student who was teaching at the music store named Steve Stursel, and he's really busted me. He was like, "Man, you got to fix all these problems," because I was reading music, but I wasn't, it wasn't accurate. And then he said, "You got to start improvising." So he taught me the blues scale, minor pentatonics, and from there he was like, "You need to go to this jazz camp." So I took all of his advice and went to this jazz camp called Shell Lake Jazz Camp, and also in Wisconsin. And the teachers there were mostly from Indiana University,
which is a great music school.
Yeah, another great music school. So I'd spent ever since the 7th grade through the end of high school, I went there every summer, and
man, that's so cool.
Soaked it all up, and that's kind of where I got the jazz bug from.
So, would any of your parents into music or jazz, or?
My parents weren't really into jazz, but my mom played classical flute, piano, and sang in the church choir. My dad played the radio, but he loved good musicians, and we always watched Hee Haw together. And he was like, "Boy, Roy Clark's a great guitar player." I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." We actually ended up going to see him at the Chippewa Valley County State Fair.
Very cool, man.
Roy Clark, it was awesome.
Yeah, Roy Clark is a hell of a player.
But he didn't play music, but he had a great appreciation for musicians.
That's nice. So when you came to New York, how did you, as you said, it's a tough place to get started. How did you start getting known, and how did you get to become a popular sideman?
Well,
You seem easy as hell to get along with too, man.
Well,
That's huge.
that does help. That does help.
Well, you always, and you're like, seem to be the guy, like you know, you smiling is like your first instinct. Like,
That's
no, it's just like, great. Who the hell is it? That's the guy you want to hang around with, or the
yeah,
woman, you know, that's the person you want to hang around with. Like, you know, people are negative. It's
right.
draining, man.
When I moved to New York, I stuck with my peer group of musicians that had already moved up to New York from North Texas. So you end up playing sessions at people's houses and apartments, and try to go sit in at sessions that are happening. And then the best thing is just to go to people's gigs, people who are playing, and just try to meet as many people as you can, and hopefully somebody gets sick and they need a sub at the last minute for a gig, or whatever, recording session.
Yeah.
And I mean, it took a long time just to battle through just being unknown and then trying to have people remember your name and get called again. I had done some Broadway stuff in Dallas for the Dallas Summer Musicals, but for some reason I never got into the Broadway thing up here, to my chagrin. But all the Broadway musicians will say, well, good for you, you didn't have to do that. But I did end up doing wedding band stuff and club dates just to make money, because I didn't want to work a day job all the time.
Sure. So you hustled anything you could do to just play guitar.
Yeah, I just wanted to play guitar. And the first thing I did was I played electric bass in a club date band for a couple years, because that back then, if you didn't sing the rock tunes, they were like, we don't need you. So, and I was not a confident singer. Still, I'm not a confident singer. So, but I had an electric bass. I've been playing bass ever since the 7th grade as well. And I knew how to read, and I had a good ear. So I found out like what the current tunes were, tried to learn all those tunes, and ended up working in a club date band, just playing electric bass for the first 2 years I was here in New York.
In the city, or out in Queens?
All over the place. Queens, Long Island, Bronx, Staten Island, Manhattan, wherever the gigs were, we go. And I had a car. That's another thing. A lot of musicians move to New York, don't have a car. So I had a little Toyota Tercel, so I could fit my Hartke 410 bass cabinet back there, and maybe a couple other horn players or whatever, and drive out to a gig. And so, yeah, having a car is hard, but it can pay for itself if you get enough gigs where you have to drive.
Well, in the outer boroughs, it's easier. You can't have a car in Manhattan, man.
No. That's you're condemned to getting up at 7 a.m, sitting in your car, and then at 8 o'clock, magically going to the other side of the street, waiting for the parking rules to change over, and then moving the car back. It's crazy. I don't know how anybody can do that, but people.
But they got alternate side of the street parking out in Queens, but it's just more spots. You don't have to. You can get a spot on the right side of the street at night. Yeah,
and it might even be only 2 days a week or something. So, you might be doomed on Tuesdays and Fridays, or Mondays.
Sure.
And Thursdays. Wednesdays is the International Day of not having to move your car in New York. So
Wednesday is Switzerland of parking, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was basically hustle.
Yeah, it was just
out there banging.
And, I mean, another good thing that has always helped me and still helps me is I was a good sight reader. I could sight read music pretty well, and that was also being a product of going to North Texas and playing in the lab bands, and every day they bring in music for you to read. It's just part of the course material. You just show up, they put new music in front of you, you have to sight read it. And that's always been one of the things I can count on to help me get by in New York, is being a good sight reader.
I think that's a skill that helps you get by everywhere, because it's, when I ask people sometimes, is there anything you wish you did different? That is, when they're talking about career-wise, that's almost 75% of the answer is, I wish I studied sight reading. I wish I boned up on my theory a little more. That's
right.
Pretty common answer. So, and even guys that are successful side music, like Lukather, I interviewed Steve Lukather, and he was saying how I didn't sight read. There was a whole bunch of guys. That's what they, that's like the SWAT team of, no, seriously, that's like the SWAT team of session guys, that. So yeah, I could see that being a great skill. Good for you.
Can you imagine Glenn Campbell being in the Wrecking Crew and not reading music?
It's not possible.
The stories of him, like they would play the track and he would not play, and he would just listen. And then like, okay, Glenn, we're going to roll it back. And then he knew exactly what to play and fit his parts in there without reading. It's mind-boggling the level of ears that guy had.
Brilliant guitar player, man.
Yeah.
Hey, you played in venues all over the city. What's your favorite venue in New York and favorite venue worldwide? You've been in 18 countries.
I have to say I love playing at the 55 Bar. Yeah. It's not the most dramatic jazz club. The lighting is terrible. It smells bad.
It's small. It's like you don't have a lot of room up there either.
It looks like the roof is leaking. All the tiles are damaged, but the sound is great in there. It's a wood floor. It's small enough to have about 60 people comfortably seated and a few more standing. But it's the quintessential small jazz club feel, and there's nothing like being able to play for people who are seated right in front of you, and you get an instant feedback. There's no 10 feet from the stage vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love it. I play there more than any other place as a sideman, as a leader. And all my heroes when I first moved to New York were playing there. Wayne Krantz and Wayne Eastern and Adam Rogers and Ben Monder. That's where I would go to hear them play. So if it's good enough for them to play there,
Ben's such a talented guy, man.
Ben is top 5 in the world as far as I'm concerned.
Great. And he's a great guy too. It's really funny because when I had him on my show, he goes, Craig, I've had 4 podcasts on and none of them have aired. I said, dude, we're going to have a great time and your show is going to be great. And we did. It was wonderful. We had a great time. But he has this like deadpan delivery like Stephen Wright. And I said that to him. I said, you're like Stephen Wright. He goes, but I'm not funny. Yeah, he was good. So he was great. And I just listened to his new record this week. It's like yesterday's, man. It was brilliant.
Oh, yeah. Solo guitar.
Awesome.
At one point when I lived in Brooklyn, he lived 1 block behind me, and I could open up my window and listen to him.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then one day I got this knock on my door. Like I get on there. I'm like, Ben, what are you doing? He goes, can I borrow your Rat pedal? I'm like, why? He goes, my Rat pedal broke. And I'm like, sure. So I went upstairs and let him have my Rat pedal. And a few days later, he comes back. He goes, here, you can take it back. And I said, what happened to yours? He goes, it's still broken, but I don't like your sound. I'm like, that Rat pedals sound that different? He goes, they do to me.
Yeah. Maybe he's like one of these guys like Eric Johnson who could he puts a different chord in there and he could hear the.
Yeah.
There are some guys like that. They just could, they're.
I think Ben is one of those guys.
He's a savant, man, for sure. He's, not an idiot savant. He's a savant, when it comes to music. He's just really brilliant. He hears and sees things other people don't and can't. So,
right.
How about worldwide? Favorite thing you've played in?
That's a good question. I love playing in Toronto at a place called the Rex. It's a old-fashioned hotel that has a nice bar on the first level, and they have music 7 nights a week. And I think Tom puts on about 40 to 50 shows a week. So they have music.
Oh my God, that's old school, man.
Yeah,
Nobody's doing that.
It's like two to 3, sometimes 4 different acts over one evening. And then on the weekends, he has music starting at noon, whatever, like old timey Dixieland stuff. And then at night it'll be like hardcore jazz or fusiony stuff. So, I mean, I've always loved playing there. I started playing there in 2004 with Chris Terry, who's a Canadian bass player. And he brought me up to play at the Rex with Dan Weiss, and I just have loved playing there ever since.
There's not too many places the only place I could think of is Broadway in Nashville that has that sort of, and even that, it's not, you go there some days it's empty.
Right.
That's really cool, man.
He's managed to keep it together.
It's really rare.
Even Snarky Puppy played up there.
Did they?
When they were first getting going, they did a short Canada run, and Tom loved them, and he, and ever since they keep going back, and I think now they're a little too big to play a venue like that, but it's a great room. You can fit 150 people in there. It's kind of like a large version of the 55 bar, but the ceiling tiles are nice and white.
Hey man, are you working on anything right now that you're excited about? I know you got a new record out.
Yes, my new record's out. Just still trying to do some gigs with that stuff and that band. But I'm writing new music, and I'm working with a singer friend of mine, Jocelyn Medina, and we're trying to write music together. And sometimes I just write a piece and I'm like, can you put lyrics to this? Or we'll get together and try to do lyrics and music at the same time, which is hard. I mean, just trying to get 8 bars, can be tough, because we have different ideas of what should happen, and somebody has to say, okay, let's try it your way. And it's a new thing for me. I've never tried to do that before. And
it's really cool that you're doing new stuff after doing this for so many years.
I mean, you get to a point where you're like, there's got to be something different than just the same band I've had. I'd love to do some organ trio stuff. I'd love to do some stuff without drums. I'd love to do stuff with just a small trio without, maybe just a vocalist and the bass player. I did some recording with a vocalist named Elizabeth Loninger. She's from Austria, and we just did some stuff where she was playing acoustic piano, singing, and my friend Evan Greger was playing bass, and it was just such a nice vibe, no drums. Doesn't have to be bombastic rock out guitar stuff, it's cool. So
was this
there's so many directions to go all the time.
Was this all jazz with the singer-songwriter stuff that you're doing? Because that's hard.
Yeah, it's not like swingity swing jazz. It's more of like ethereal, Latin-y world music vibe stuff. And the one tune we wrote together was kind of like a pop ballad almost, except without having the pop ballad drum sound.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the sky's the limit these days. And even popular music, I still tend to watch videos sometimes just to check out what everyone's doing and listen to the new sounds. And, it's good to be informed.
Dude, you're like so optimistic. That's really inspiring. Are you, when you do all these other things, I mean, just the fact that you're making records still is like really inspiring, because it's tough, do you tour like on your website? Do you have a touring schedule, or like to support any of your stuff? That's gotta be hard to do.
Yeah. I mean, when my record came out, I did 2 kind of 4 or 5 gig tours in the fall of last year. I did a run in Ohio and West Virginia, and then I did a tour of Montreal, Toronto, Rochester, and then some gigs in New York. And then the last gig of the tour was in Maine. But I haven't had any luck trying to get a Europe tour happening this time. So I don't know what it is, but it's tough. I mean, there's nobody's really buying CDs like they used to. So
at the gigs, from what I hear, the only time you can sell merch CDs at your gigs.
Yeah, I mean, because people tend to buy CDs as a memento of the gig they saw,
the experience.
Whether they listen to them or not, I don't really know. But I mean, you really do still sell CDs at a gig, and
I think people like to support good music. That if someone drags their ass out of bed, gets dressed, goes down to a gig, it's in today's terms, it's effort. Years ago you had people working out in the field 16 hours a day. They'd laugh. Today, you having to go to the bathroom and interrupt the TV show is effort. But for the people that are into music, I think they really do want to support their musicians. And I think, like, I agree with you. They buy the CD as a memento from the experience and to support the musician, to show, hey man, here's some love, you earned it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've even had this last tour, I was doing a 2-for-1 special, which is my own marketing ploy. I try to sell the new one for $10, and I was giving away the previous CD, which
That's
was
great.
only 3 years old, like just as a bonus. And a lot of times that works too. Like, wow, I'm getting 2 CDs for $10 instead of $20. So, and then some musicians would be like, "Man, you're stupid." I'm like, "No, I don't want to. I don't want to have a box full of CDs in my basement."
No, you're doing. And are you open to a suggestion, like a
Yeah, yeah.
marketing? So I've been running a marketing company 21 years. So this isn't like something I read in a book. If you change the verbiage to 2 for 1 to buy one get one free.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I think that'll be a little more because 2 for 1 people don't know the value, but they're getting something
Yeah, yeah,
free.
yeah. Right, right. If you have the word "free" in there, it's always helpful.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I always tell people too, like, take the second CD, and if you don't like it, give it to somebody who think might enjoy listening to music. So,
Yeah. No, that's a great offer.
I don't really print that many CDs. I think I printed 1,000 CDs for this last one. And if if it takes 10 years to get rid of that box, so what? It takes 10 years. So, and I hired a publicist and a radio promoter, and that right away, there's 400 CDs gone out of that 1,000.
Great.
I hope, just getting my music out there is the goal, and however long it takes, that's however long it takes.
Well, man, just to let you know, now that you came on the show, the next CD you drop, you want to come back on, we'll promote it. We'll have a 30-minute special to promote it.
Awesome.
So just keep that in mind. Yeah. I'd like to support everybody that comes on the show. In fact, Ben's coming on again, I think like next week, because I interviewed him probably 4 or 5 months ago, but he had this new record out. So I wanted to support it.
Yeah.
So come back on to talk about that. Yeah, man. So doors open.
I recently saw Ben play in New York at Drum. My friend Joel Harrison was putting on a concert. It was a tribute to Ralph Towner. And he had so many great guitar players. He had Nels Cline, he had Vic Juris, Laney Stern, Brad Shepik, and Monder came out and played 2 tunes with bass and drums. And man, it was just, you could hear a pin drop. It's like that every time he plays. It's a room full of guitar players checking out what possible on the instrument. And Ralph Towner was there too, and he got up to do an interview with Joel, and he was like, "Wow, I can't believe Ben just played like that."
He's great, man. He's really great. And I had Nels on the show. He's another guy that blows me away. I mean, so creative, man. Such a ball of energy, man. Really good guy. Really good dude.
And an open-minded person. He once came and sat in with us.
Yeah.
The Mahavishnu project was playing at the bitter end, not the bitter end, the bottom line.
That's gone now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gone. He was in town, and Greg said, "Well, man, why don't you come up and we'll do a 2 guitar thing?" And I'm like, "Okay, great." And then he came up there, and we were like trading on Meeting in the Spirits. And afterwards, he posted something like, "Just played with Pete McCann, cheese shredder," because I'm from Wisconsin.
Oh, right. He's such a nice guy. He's had I don't know if you know this. He's had a lot of hard knocks.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, you talked about it on the show.
When you hear him play, it's amazing. Like, he's one of those crossover artists. There's no genre that he can't do.
Yeah,
and he does everything well. He's from avant-garde to rock and roll. It's like he can do it.
His knowledge of the music in general is maybe deeper than almost anybody I've interviewed, I think.
Wow.
With maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. He's like an encyclopedia. I mean, he's he's a great guy. Man, what so you grew up in let's talk about this. Top 3 experiences musically, because you've done stuff all over the world. What would that be? Knee-jerk reaction.
Well, when I was in high school, I had 2 really great guitar teachers. One of them was a guy named Russ, who actually used to play second cornet on the Milton Berle live TV show in New York.
Wow, that's going back.
He somehow found his way to Wisconsin and was teaching jazz guitar. And I was fortunate enough to have him be my teacher for 4 years in high school. And during that same time, I would go to the Shell Lake Jazz Camp in the summer and study with Mike Irish, another good friend of mine. And those 2 guys alone kind of taught me how to swing and listen to music and, practice playing jazz. And then going to college, having Jack Peterson as my guitar teacher at North Texas was crucial. I mean, you know, here's a guy of decades of guitar pedagogy under his belt, you know, having taught at Berkeley, having been a studio ace musician in Dallas in the 50s and 60s. That was invaluable, just being able to study from him. And the lineage of all the guitar players who've studied with him is so impressive, you know. Half the guys teaching guitar in the United States know about him, study with him, knew about his book. It's really amazing.
So he's like a Ted Green kind of a guy.
Yeah. I mean, he's just like an incredible source of wisdom. And when I was at school, the second half of my playing career at North Texas, I was actually doing some small gigs with them every so often.
That
you know,
must
like
have been great.
guitar gigs, and you know, like one time he was like, "I need you to house sit. I'm going to go on vacation. I want you to come and watch my guitars at my house." He had about 7 or 8 old Gibsons, and he had them locked in a closet. He was like,
so you couldn't play them either?
No. He was like, "I want you to come over and just make sure nobody breaks in and takes my guitars."
That's funny.
So those 3 guys, I think, are key to, you know, how I turned out as a player.
Sure.
You know,
man, that says a lot about you. Those are the first 2 of your, let's say, top 3 experiences.
Yeah.
Is your relationship with the people who taught you. Yeah, that's pretty insightful, actually.
Those kind of foundations are key, you know. But then there's some watershed moments where you hear musicians that just kind of change your whole perspective. When I was in my first year in college, I actually went to Stevens Point University in Wisconsin, where Mike Irish was teaching, and he played me John McLaughlin, Meeting of the Spirits. And it just kind of like, because from all through high school, first year of college, I was pretty much a bebop guitar player, and I didn't really check out fusion. So when he laid that record on me, I was like, "Oh my God, this is incredible!" And then years later, I ended up playing in a Mahavishnu tribute band, and you know, tried to cop it for real. So
that had to be a pretty challenge.
That was
challenge, man. I can't.
That was challenging. I did that for 4 years, and we actually got to, you know, meet McLaughlin and go backstage and hear them play. He had his band with the Indian guys, Treelock and Zakir Hussain and Srinivas. We went back and heard them play at Town Hall and got to talk to McLaughlin backstage a little bit. That was a lot of fun.
How does that work, like, administratively? So you're a cover band doing, whether it's McLaughlin or Blue Oyster Cult or The Dead, do you have to pay like a licensing fee to play their music, or how does that, or is that part of the club's BMI? How does that work?
I'm not really sure, because Greg put out a couple live recordings of us playing the music, but all the licensing was probably BMI or ASCAP, whichever companies licensed the original music. And, you know, we couldn't accept any royalties for the tunes, but I don't really think they were playing those records on any radio station anyways.
Right.
So it was just more of a thing to like, hey, this is what we're doing, and we have a recording if you want to buy it. And I don't think McLaughlin really cared, because he had moved on, you know, decades after that.
Yeah.
He had so many different groups, you know, and that was like his first big success. And I don't know, it's interesting how that band was like so amazing and then just totally blew apart, you know?
Yeah.
From a lot of people I've talked to, a lot of them say, you know, it was because of John's ego and him claiming the copyright on all the music. But I have a feeling it had to do with more with the fact that they were playing like 200 gigs a year, you know, just constantly on the road, being burnt out playing the same stuff. But man, what an incredible band, you know?
Yeah.
But so many bands end up the same way. Look at Cream. Look at Jeff Beck's group with Rod Stewart. Like, if you play too much and the situation's not and if somebody doesn't want to be there, it's eventually going to be, the band's going to fall apart, you know?
Well, just think of it this way. Imagine you've been married 23 years. I'll be married 25 years this week. It takes a lot of work to make
Oh
it
yeah.
happen, right? Now
Yeah.
imagine you got 4 people or 5 people. It's like almost impossible. No, I mean,
Right.
seriously, it's like, that's not, you know, it's not like, oh, we talked about kidding around about having kids. It's not like 4 times harder. It's like to the 4th power
Yeah,
harder.
yeah.
You know, it's a lot of, it's tough to be involved in such close quarters with, you know, that many people for that long. You know, it's
Right.
rare. You know, that's why it's rare when you hear bands like the Stones, and even the Stones. You know, Charlie Watts is, I mean, what's his name's gone.
The bass player. The
Bill
bass-
Wyman. You know, they've had people come and go over the years. You know,
It's true. I mean, that's, just imagine how long the Beatles were together and how prolific they were.
yeah.
But Paul McCartney's latest band that he's had, he even said, because I can't believe this is the band I've had together longer than any of my other bands. It's
Yeah, they've been together a long time.
the Eagles, same thing, classic rock and roll
Oh,
story.
but you saw that movie.
Oh man,
That was not easy.
You have to watch that movie because it's basically, if you're going to go on the road and try to be a band, this is what you're going to be up against.
Yeah, they had a bunch of, you know, Bernie Leadon was
Yeah,
gone, and you know, they had, and Felder. I mean, you know, that wasn't without its casualties either.
Yeah, the whole Felder story is mind-boggling to me.
No, it's one of those things. No one's ever going to know the real truth because from different sides, it's their perspective.
Right.
It's kind of hard to figure out the real truth.
But I can believe that he wanted to sing Hotel California because it was his riff, you know. But then,
what is Joe Walsh's riff?
Yeah, well, he had the chord changes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And, I mean, it was his impetus for the song. And then they sent him out to get beer or something, and then they recorded the vocals while he was gone. That's classic.
Classic music business, man. That's music business. Old school music business, man. Someone told me, who was telling me that? Do you happen to know Eddie Martinez?
No, but I've heard that name before.
He was a big session guy in the 70s and 80s in the city. Pop, everything, rock. He was played in David Lee Roth's first album, out of New York. Great guy. And he was saying, you know, that, or maybe it wasn't Eddie, but someone was saying, you know, the nice thing about New York is they're really upfront with you. Like you go there, you say, look, we're going to try to fuck you every opportunity we can. We just want you to know this up front. Because, you know, when you go to LA, it's like everybody's smiling and said, this is going to be great. And then they try to fuck you every opportunity. But you're not prepared for it because they're just, you know, he goes, that's what I like about New York. It's like, you know, you're walking into a Pandora's box from the get-go, but at least so you have the wisdom. Okay, let me be really smart on this, you know, or not eyes in the back of your head, the proverbial, you know.
Yeah, my New York radar is pretty impressive.
You have to, man, growing up there.
Not a poser from a mile away, you know, and especially people who try to talk to you after a gig. If they don't wind up their conversation within 2 minutes, you're just like, okay, how long am I going to have to sit there and talk to this guy?
Oh, like they want something.
yeah.
Like just come out and tell me, you know.
Got to be leading somewhere, unless it's just like they want to talk about themselves, and you know, just leave me the hell alone. I want to go get my beer and be done with this.
I hear you, man. What's funny, like when I was in the city, I've been out. I left '89, but I grew up there for 23 years, and I think I was back in 09 or 10. I went out with a buddy of mine and I couldn't believe it. I left my cell phone on the table to get a drink. Sure enough, I came back. It was gone.
Oh no.
And my wife couldn't, she goes, how did you do that? She goes, because you are the guy. Yeah. Like, you know, I don't leave my house here in Tampa. I fucking lock the door, lock the windows. And she, you know, I'm always like, you know, how did you do? I said, I don't know, man. I was just so relaxed because I was on and you know,
I'm back in your element.
I was just like chilling out. Yeah, it was, you know, she couldn't believe it. She goes, you're always like so like this security aware, you know.
Right.
It happens, man. Hey, you've done some commercial work. I was curious about that. You know, you said you'd work for CNN, BBC, IBM, and Sesame Street, and I'm sure a bunch of others. Were you involved in licensing music or exclusively on the recording side?
I was just on the recording side.
Okay.
The CNN thing, I played no less than 4 guitars on the Piers Morgan
Okay.
theme song, which ran for however long that he had the show.
Yeah.
But I signed a licensing agreement with a one-time fee for the record.
Okay.
But the guy who hired me, I've been recording with for more than 10 years, and he had brought me so much work, and that was also the BBC contract. So it was kind of one of these things. He goes, I know this is sneaky, but because I really need you to sign this. And I'm like, okay, I understand. I said, you've given me so much work and you're going to continue to use me in the future. That's how it's done. And had he not had me sign that, I probably still wouldn't have tried to get a lawyer and say, no, I need this money every time the song is on the, it's only a 30-second thing. It's like, and there's somebody talking over the whole thing anyway, so you can hardly hear what's going on. There's so much music like that. So, I mean, it happens.
Man, it is what it is. You got to do, you have to weigh the pros and cons. Of, I'm the first call guy for this dude, and he's been feeding me business for 10 years. You know what? You got to do it. Otherwise, because if you would have said, I'm not going to sign it, he might not have put you on the recording.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just. I
had to ask him, I'm like, this must be something big because you never had me sign any papers before. And he goes, it could be big, because he didn't know if it was going to be accepted by the network. So it's one of those things. But
see, that's what I'm saying. In New York, in LA, it would have been like, hey man, we got some paperwork over there. You just get that done, processed before. See, in New York, like, listen, I'm fucking you on this. Can you sign, please? I hate to do this, but you got to sign if you want to play. See, I get that, man.
No, everything I've done commercially is always as a sideman. I don't really write jingles or anything. I have some friends who do that sort of thing for a living, and it's another thing. Like, you really have to bury yourself in that line of work and know who's gonna buy your stuff. So, but yeah, I enjoy it. It's demanding. And I have a lot of fun in the studio. It's my second most comfortable place to be. Cool. It wasn't always like that when I first started doing studio stuff. It's very weird to play and have yourself in your headphones. That's problem number one. Like, hearing your guitar sound in your head so close to your ears, you're just like, oh, you kind of get a shiver. Like, I can't stand it that close. But over the years, you just get used to it, and like I said before, my sight reading stuff always comes into play in the studio.
Oh, and that must be such an asset in there.
Yeah. So, it's crucial. You have to be a good reader, and you have to bring different instruments, and don't be afraid to schlep. Like, one time, for the same guy who did the CNN stuff, I remember bringing recently 6 guitars, banjo, mandolin, and ukulele for one session.
Into the city? Is this a recording studio in the city?
Into the city. So my car was entirely packed with stuff, and he met me at the front door of the studio and
that's the issue. It's not the car. It's like, you don't want to leave that stuff, and you don't want to take 2 guitars and leave the rest, because they'll be gone. That's the okay. So he met you at the door, so you're able to drop everything off right there. Yeah, I remember
in high school, I went to a clinic that Tommy Tedesco, the great studio recording guitar player, he explained, like, at one time he used to have a van just full of guitars, and he would drive to every date and get credit for bringing all these extra instruments, even if he didn't play them. So I'm like, well, that'd be great, but I could never do that in New York. You just have to park your van in a lot and pay twice as much for parking.
Oh, absolutely.
Hope nobody would break in and steal your stuff.
Absolutely, man. Hey, any low points or dark periods you've had to deal with, Pete, and how'd you get through them?
Oh yeah, of course. To be quite honest, I had a pretty dark period at the beginning of this year. Last year, I quit doing club dates and weddings, which was my bread and butter for 29 years. And I'd had enough, and I was tired of, having my ears beat in on gigs like that. And I just decided, like, I'm only going to do things that I want to do. And so it's this the beginning of this year has been pretty rough, but things are starting to turn around. And, it's just I just have to go at it from a different angle. And ever since I moved to New York, I've always been the guy, like, I'll accept basically any gig as long as it pays a certain amount of money and covers my bridge toll. And if I can get a chance to meet somebody new, meet new musicians, you always have to be open-minded about this. So, fortunately, my wife has helped me through that period. But, every so often you just go through this thing like, why am I still here? Is it still worth living in one of the most expensive parts of the country to play music? But then when you go to hear great musicians play, that kind of just takes everything back. Like, it's so worth being able to live a half an hour out of the city, and go hear the world's greatest musicians whenever you want to. Every day of the week, there's something worth checking out.
Thanks for sharing that. I give you a lot of credit for making that decision, because it was probably an easy, this is one of those things that's an easy decision to come to, a hard decision to execute.
Yeah. I mean, because you're basically giving up a financial chunk of your money. So
what made you like, what happened that suddenly you said, man, I've got to answer to a higher authority, me, I've got to be more like, what was that? What was the thing that
I was doing a wedding gig out on Long Island, and the band had a new drummer that night who was just excruciatingly loud for how big of a place it was. And this is a wedding band that's pretty well known in the city. They have a sound company who brings all the gear. So I was just used to having just to bring my guitar and a small pedal board. Don't have to bring an amp. Everything is there. Just plug in and play. So I was I was happy about all those things, but at the same time, musically, it's not what you want to do, but financially, it's a good thing, and it's hard to turn down. Since I don't really play Broadway shows, that's an excellent opportunity to make a certain amount of money every week that you can survive on. But
sure.
So, I just, after the gig, I turned to the leader and I said, I think I'm done. I've been doing this for too long, and I probably should have retired several years ago. Maybe at 50, when I turned 50, I probably should have said, I should probably do something else. So it's been ass kicking, but so what? I mean, that's part of being a musician. You do something, you get through with it, you want to move on. That's the way I felt about my Vishnu project. It kicked my ass for 4 years. We did a fair amount of touring. I loved learning the music. I loved being able to meet McLaughlin. But I'd had enough, and somebody else could take over for me and learn the music. And so I don't know. It's one of those things, like, it's a time to go. So
do you think? Again, thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to ask you, do you think, because before I hit 50, I started realigning and like implementing things like, I need to make myself happier.
Right.
Because like for me, it wasn't like I'm sitting there thinking, man, half my life is gone. Although shit, I hope it's only half, right? But it was more like the issue of time became a greater priority, and my happiness quotient within time. I don't know. Did you have any of that? Was some of that related to that?
Man, 50 is like a gut punch, and it lasted a whole year, but I just had to keep myself busy and just keep working through it. And then, like I said, when I quit doing club dates and gigs that paid a decent amount of money, that's when it all kind of sunk in, like, shit, man, I'm 52 now. What am I going to do? So it's a funny thing. And I think everybody goes through that problem. My wife, when she turned 50, she decided to do a complete career change. She was a graphic designer and wasn't happy doing it anymore. So she went back to school, got a master's degree in art education. Now she's an elementary school art teacher, and she loves it.
That's awesome.
So you could take her approach and just try to do something completely different, but still related to your field. So
sure. Good for her, man.
that was one of the reasons why I thought I could probably quit doing club dates, because, you know, I have her to rely on. She has a good job.
That health insurance.
Yeah. There was a period of 10 years where she had her own design LLC, and we were both putting income into just making healthcare payments. Like,
well, it's tough when you have two self-employed people, man. Yeah.
Crazy. So fortunately she has a job now where we can rely on healthcare, but you know, that's one of the things that's messed up about this country. And
healthcare.
Something about it.
Yeah, it's rough. It is, because like when you're self-employed, if you want any kind of decent policy, now I'm in Tampa, which is a lot cheaper than the Northeast, but still, even down here, it's $1,000 a month, and it's shitty.
Yeah,
it's shitty. You know, you get $1,000 a month for for the worst coverage available.
You get hit by a car and you're laid up for 6 months in a hospital, and so
right, then I'm covered like above 10 grand or so, whatever the crazy number is or something like that. But
you're still going to be paying.
Yeah, it's health insurance here is rough. And I'm thank God I'm in good shape. I work out and I try to take care, but you don't know, as you know, shit happens, right? You can't prevent, you can go to the gym every day. You can't prevent getting hit by a car. You can't prevent, God forbid, cancer and shit like that, so, man, well, thank you for sharing that, man. And I'm really glad. It seems like you're sort of getting moving now. Like you got even these things with these singers. And one thing I know that this, because this has been your like spirit, something is going to happen from one of these things. You just don't know what it is. You just got to keep stepping up to the plate and taking swing. Right. And, something's going to connect. You just don't know what, or, something's going to connect from something that you're doing with, it'll lead to something. You just don't know what the door opener is going to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I get it, man. Thank you.
And ever since day one, since I moved up here, I primarily get my work as a sideman, and when I lead my own band, that's when I really lose money because I want to pay the guys in my band what I think, should be a fair quote for what they do. So,
sure.
And it's funny, jazz musicians have this saying, we just keep passing around the same $50 bill. or maybe with today's economy, it should be more like 100, but a lot of times it's not $100.
Yeah.
75.
That's so funny. If you could go back and give advice to your younger self, assuming you'd be open to listening, anything you would have told yourself?
Don't be so hard on yourself. That's a hard lesson to learn as a musician. I have a student who's gone on to do great things, but I always have to remind him, like, don't be so hard on yourself. You're young, you're in your 20s, you got the world by the balls. So many things are going to happen. But when I was his age, I had the same sort of self-deprecating attitude. Like, oh man, why don't I play fast enough? Why don't I have this much, knowledge under my fingers at this point? But, these things only happen after doing the same thing for decade after decade and getting better at it. And, just now I have a feeling like I can actually play some super fast tempos. But when I first moved to New York, that was always my Achilles heel. Like, man, why can't I play, Donna Lee this fast? Why can't I play Joy Spring this fast, and make the changes and sound like I'm really playing? But it's a lifelong study. It's
yeah, man, everybody's a work in progress, and
it's a work in progress, and
you accept that so much easier when you're older. I don't know why. Yeah. And you're like grateful for it,
Of course.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's my one hindsight thing I would have to say is you can't be too hard on yourself when you're starting out. And the best thing is, another great thing I've always found is always be happy when somebody gives you criticism and don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Because I do a fair amount of jazz education clinics and stuff, and I always try to be slightly hard on college musicians or high school musicians because they have an attitude like, "Oh man, I'm the shit," and I'm like, "No, you're not the shit. You really need to check out this, or you know, go listen to this recording." And then they kind of like get like a little sullen, and I'm like, "Look, man, somebody said the same thing to me when I was your age, and it really helped." So that's those two things. I mean, it just that we're in an artistic field, and you have to take advice and criticism from people who have been doing this for decades. So it's really important. And my teachers were always, they were pleasant to be around, but they were hard on me. And if they weren't hard on me, I wouldn't have become the player I am today.
But that's what you need. What you can't have a music teacher that says, "Oh, that was great. Oh man, that was great." Like, how the hell are you going to improve?
Exactly.
Seriously,
If you always have this phrase, "Oh, that sounded great." No, it didn't. You have to be, I mean, there's a discussion going on about politically correct and how the world is changing and how we're afraid to be honest with each other and speak to each other genuinely without being offensive.
But you could be genuine if your intention is good. That's all that counts. You know what I'm saying? It's intent.
Exactly.
Intention is everything.
Right.
You can't. If you're going to be hurt, that's your problem, not the guy or the gal that's giving you the genuine, kind advice to make you better.
Right.
It's like being a parent, man. You've raised two kids. You got to be brutally honest with kids sometimes. You can,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you really handled that. You could have done a better job and whatever,
Exactly.
It's funny because I've had a few music teachers, and my biggest problem is because I'm very self-directed and I get it, but they would say, "So what do you want to do this week?" I'm like, "Fuck, how the hell do I, why are you?" And I feel pressure. Like you're asking, like, if I knew what I needed to do this week, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I need help, man. I
would be watching a YouTube video right now. Somebody doing
right, or I'd be, watching a course. But it's like, what do you want to do this week? I have not earned that. I don't know. It's like, the doctor. Imagine if your doctor came in and said, "Hey, man, so how do you feel we should treat this thing?" Like, how the fuck do you know? Like, I mean, like,
I love it when they come in and they say, "So what's wrong with you?" I'm like, "I don't know."
I mean, it's just like that always bugged the shit. And like, I'm dying, I wanted to be like, "Hey man, this, you're anyway," but yeah, I know it's like a little ridiculous. I like constructive criticism delivered with an intention of helping me.
Right.
You can't get better otherwise. How do you get better?
Exactly.
Exactly. Hey, let's talk about gear. It's a good segue for a minute. Actually, because you teach so much, I do have a teaching question for you. What are the top 2 or 3 things that most guitar player students of yours overlook doing that don't have to be complicated? Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but the two or three things that most people overlook doing that if they did them, they'd have the biggest impact or improvement on their guitar playing.
Well, that one's easy. Just being able to read music on guitar. It's the number one bane of every guitar player. And I still have problems reading stuff, but the way to get through it is you have to throw yourself into an environment where other musicians are reading music at the same time. I love these things like these books about, how to become a better sight reader. That's all great, but unless you're in a band, like a big band or something, or orchestra, or orchestras don't need guitar, though. That's kind of a paradox. But if you're in some environment where you have to read music almost either every day or, once a week, you get together to read music with a guitar quartet or something, that's so invaluable. I mean, that's one of the things I've been able to make my career doing. So I'd have to say, try to get your reading together. And it's not going to happen just by opening a book and trying to read down from the top of the page to the bottom without stopping and going back and, like, oh, I didn't play that right. So it's a mechanical thing with your brain. You have to like, I know I'm just going to plod along and try to get back in there. And I don't know, that's crucial. Another thing I would say is today's guitar players, especially in the pop and rock, even in the jazz thing, the pedal board thing is so important. Everyone feels like they have to have a pedal board with 20 different pedals. And the older I get, the less stuff I have to bring to a gig, the better. And that's, to me, that's like a super important thing. But when I was a young kid, I had the big pedal board. I had it all glued down to a piece of plywood, and I would schlep that around, and I couldn't play without it. Now I just bring this little multi-effects Boss ME1 pedal with me, and that's all I need. You know, it's got everything. It probably has too much stuff. So fortunately, jazz education guitar, most of the time it's let's plug straight into an amp and maybe have a little reverb on the amp, and let's just play guitar duo or whatever. So that part is fun. That's always been traditionally the way you teach guitar. You just plug straight into an amp, or you have two acoustic guitars and you practice, try to get a good tone without any kind of mushing up of the sound. That can come later when you get your degree.
And what would be the third thing? So being able to read, don't focus on the pedals, focus on the tone. And what would be the number three?
Be as open-minded as possible, because if you go through life thinking that I only want to do one thing and I'm only going to ever do one thing, it's with my experience, it's not going to happen that way.
Well, you don't have you don't have a broad range of money-making opportunities either.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to become the world's greatest bebop guitar player, you have to keep in mind that you might be only making $50 to $75 per gig, and how are you going to live off that? It's going to be tough, unless
it's not like there's hundreds of those gigs either.
Yeah,
it's not like that's the most popular music where people want to hear out. Yeah.
But it depends. Like if you're willing to have an apartment with 3 or 4 other people and have a little tiny room all to yourself, and you're happy just doing that, and that's good for you. Everyone's different. When I got out of college, my parents helped me buy a car. So 5 years after out of college, I'm like, well, I want to make these car payments and I want to live in a sort of a nice place. So that's why I ended up doing club dates and wedding band stuff. I didn't want to work a day job. So I had to make sacrifices to just be financially secure. And then, of course, when I got married and had kids, I had to, make more money. So there's always these life things that come along. You have to make adjustments. So if there's anything, number 3 would be you have to be flexible, and you have to take every opportunity that comes your way, and learn from it or don't learn from it. It's up to you. Everyone's different.
Thanks, man. Hey, let's talk about gear for a few minutes. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other 2 guitars would round out your top 3?
My go-to guitar is a 1988 Gibson ES335. I bought that guitar in 2000, and it's been my main jazz guitar since then.
Original pickups, or did you replace?
Original pickups. It has kind of an extra wide neck at the bottom. It doesn't taper down like a lot of 335s do at the first fret. Can get kind of thin there. This one's more. It resembles like an acoustic guitar. It has like a pretty chunky neck.
Do you like that? You like thicker necks?
I like that. I mean, it's really, you get a lot to grab, and the sustain is great. And 335s, you can play pretty loud and turn on a distortion pedal and not get too much feedback. So it's great. It's been my jazzy jazz guitar.
Where'd you get that?
I got that at a music store which doesn't exist anymore, called 48th Street Guitars.
Oh yeah, sure.
And all the music stores
nothing on 48. And nothing is there at all, I don't think.
No,
right?
Nothing. It's all the rents got too high. Rudy's was the last store finally pick up and move. So
there's a guy interviewed. Do you know Duke Levine?
That name sounds familiar. What?
Duke is a great guitar player I believe he's in Boston area or maybe Northern Connecticut, but his brother owns a pretty successful guitar shop in Jersey.
Okay.
So I don't know his brother's first name, but his last name's Levine.
Could it be Buzzy?
Yes, I think that's it.
Rock Street Music. It's in Teaneck.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That's it. Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I've been there. It's a beautiful story. It has great stuff.
I've talked to a number of players who said, "Hey, man, I heard your interview with Duke. I don't know Duke, but I've been to his brother's shop all the time. Great. Everybody says the same thing. It's a great store." And
he has great stuff in there. He has like mandolins from 1920. It's amazing.
That's cool, man. So your 335, 88 335 is number one. What's number 2 and 3?
Number 2 is my Paul Reed Smith 24 fret bolt-on. It's not a custom. It doesn't have the fancy seagull inlays. It just has what they call moon inlays. So it's like a dot neck, except the inlays are
the half. Yeah.
But it was the guitar that I got to replace the 2 guitars that were stolen out of my house in Queens.
God, I feel for you on that. Did you get insurance at least for that, or did you get burnt?
Well, I was still technically covered under my parents' homeowners insurance policy.
Thank goodness,
so
man.
They gave me a check for $1,300, which
oh my God,
sort of covered it. But so with that money, I just took the whole check and I bought that Paul Reed Smith place because it can get sort of a Les Paul sound and a Strat sound. And I played that guitar exclusively for 10 years when I first got it. That was my jazz guitar, my club date guitar, my studio recording guitar. And I still use it for everything that's not incredibly jazzy. Like I used it on Sunday night to play at Carnegie Hall, playing for a concert, backing a 200-person choir with a band made up of primarily Broadway musicians. But my friend hired me because he knew I could read and would bring the proper gear for what's required. And so I played that guitar for that gig.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. That's my second guitar for sure.
And number 3?
Guitar, that's tough because because the first 2 really do everything I really need in life. But last year I bought a brand new Fender. I think it's called an Elite Series Strat. Okay. It has noiseless pickups, which I'm not crazy about because it's great that they're noiseless in the studio, but the treble, the high-end trebly presence of a Strat, it's kind of dumbed down a little bit.
Interesting.
That's my only grump about the guitar. It's super quiet for a Strat. Like you don't get that single coil buzz.
Sure.
But then you kind of lose some of the high end. But I bought the guitar because the neck radius is more similar to a Gibson. They changed it's not this high arching Strat shape, which I was never comfortable playing. So I bought this guitar. It has an ebony fingerboard.
Where'd you get that?
I got that at Sam Ash in Paramus, New Jersey.
Is it black?
No, it's a Sunburst and with a white pickup.
The reason I ask is because I don't know if you can see that black Strat behind me.
Yeah.
That's an ebony fingerboard, and I love it. And they don't make too many. I got that like in I think it's a 2015. I might have got it in 15 or 16. It's called a Blackout Strat, and they had issued that year 7 quote limited issue. I don't know what that means. They made 100,000 of them only or something. But I love it. I just love that neck. I mean, the fingerboard, ebony feel. I like dark necks, and that one just feels so good. It's so soft.
I think the neck is what made me want to buy that Strat because it was so easy to play at the store. And there's something about just the way the instrument sounds without even plugging it in. That's another thing. Like if you can hear the instrument without it being plugged in, that's probably a good sign that the wood is good.
Yeah.
Whoever put it together used proper glue. Whoever did the frets did a good job doing the frets. All those things are a factor in buying an instrument. And especially the Paul Reed Smith, when I took it off the shelf, the thing that appealed to me was the color, because it was so similar to my Les Paul color, which was red to gold sunburst. So
Okay.
love the coloring and the tiger stripe maple. But then when you play the guitar, the neck is so comfortable, and the guitar is reasonably light compared to a Les Paul. So
Oh God, yeah.
those two things, and then of course you plug it in, you're like, wow, because it has humbuckers that can split into single coil. You don't have the 60 hertz cycle hum that you do with a Strat.
But it doesn't really sound like a Strat. I've never played a PRS. It does.
It does sound pretty Strat-like to me. And
spanky? So it could be spanky?
Very spanky.
Okay,
I mean, not
cool.
as spanky as a Telecaster, of course. And that would be my fourth guitar. I have a Fender Tele that I really like. But yeah, there's something about the PRS, and that's the guitar I played in the Mahavishnu project. And man, you can turn that thing up, and it just will never feedback.
That's cool, man.
So great.
That's really cool.
It's really awesome.
Hey, do you remember the first record you purchased?
I can remember one of the first records I purchased was Bill Evans. Everybody Digs Bill Evans. I used to work at a music store when I was in high school called UMS Music, which was University Musician Supply. And they moved 2 blocks away from my high school. So the last 2 years I was going to high school, I would teach students a couple nights a week till 7 or 8 at night. And with that money, I saved up $650, and I bought my first archtop Gibson 175 in green.
Those are great guitars, man. I love those guitars.
But the music store also had a record store on the top floor. So the bottom floor was music studios, teaching studios, little small rooms. And then the top floor had gear, amps, and then a section with records. So, of course, you get some cash from teaching a lesson. You're like, oh, I want to go buy that record.
Everybody Digs Bill Evans.
Everybody digs
Cool
Bill
name.
Evans.
I'm going to check that out.
A great record.
That was like a greatest hits?
No, it was just an early record of his, and it's beautifully recorded. He's an amazing player, early influence, and of course I knew about him from Miles Davis Kind of Blue. So your teacher says, oh, you should hear this record, and then you go to hear the record and you're like, well, maybe I should check out that guy's record. So one thing leads to another,
which is such a great thing about music, man.
Oh yeah, of course.
Desert Island Discs, top 3, no particular order, just for right now, like your knee-jerk reaction.
Wow. Kenny Wheeler, music for large and small ensembles.
Who is that? I've never heard of that, Kenny Wheeler.
Kenny Wheeler was a very well-known jazz trumpet player, originally from Canada, moved to the UK, sort of made his living over there as a studio musician. A tremendous writer, had beautiful bands, always featuring people like John Abercrombie, Dave Holland, Jack DeJohnette, Michael Brecker, Jan Garbarek. He ended up playing in Dave Holland's Seeds of Time Quintet, which is one of my favorite bands. But I got to study with him at the Banff Center for the Arts in 1988. And just hearing him play and talk to him and listening to his writing just always affected me. And that's definitely one of my top favorite records. Next up, I have to say, I love Alan Holdsworth, so I'd have to say 16 Men of Tame. That's one of my favorite records. Just an incredible guitar player. I'm really sad that he's not with us anymore.
Sure.
Profound influence on me. I don't really play anything like him, but he's one of those guitar players that you can always try to aspire to play like. And
sure.
I loved his music. Wow, number 3. This is tough, man.
At least it's tough. Yeah, that's why I always say just for now, like I could ask you this in an hour, it'd be 3 different.
I'd have to say John Coltrane. I think it's just a blue album, and it just says Coltrane, and it's maybe when he switched record labels. It might be on Prestige, but the opening track of the record is a tune called "Out of This World," and I think it's like one of the best records of his quartet with Elvin Jones and McCoy Tyner playing piano. It's so beautiful, just the interplay and the recording quality. It's okay. I mean, back then they didn't have the beautiful stereo separation that you have now, but I don't know, just the energy that was created with that band, and he, at that point, he could basically bring in any music and they would just play the crap out of it. So amazing. So I'd have to say that record, Alan Holdsworth, 16 Minutes In, Kenny Wheeler, Music for Large. I've listened to these records so many times. I don't get tired of listening to them.
That's cool, man. Yeah, that's critical for your favorites, man.
Yeah. But if it was only 3, that would be rough.
Oh, I know. That's just yeah, I know. Believe me.
How about a small iPod?
Do they have iPods anymore? I don't think they do they?
I think they're dying out. Hold on to them. There's got to be a way to fix broken iPods.
I have one right here. I swore by this thing. It's
man, of course. That was probably the 60 gigger or something, or 100 gigs or something.
I don't know, but it's as heavy as a guitar pedal. No, it's only 20 gigs. This is as heavy as a guitar pedal, and it's this miniature. I think I have 2 of them in here. Well, I have another one here. Oh, I have this one here. This one is 160 gigs. This is lighter.
Yeah. I have one of those too.
This is big time here.
After a while, they break and the batteries don't work, and then you're screwed.
Well, there's no cord. I don't have a cord anymore. That's so hard. Even those 30-pin things. Man, what's your definition of happiness, Pete?
Man, my definition of happiness. Musically, it's when I'm playing a gig. I don't think anything can compare to just doing a gig, playing music with my friends and having that experience of community. Like you're all in this together. You're not making a lot of money, but whatever. This is what I signed up for. This is what I knew life was going to be like. Then as far as happiness, I'd say non-musically, having a family, having 2 grown kids in college, having a wife who I've shared my life with, it doesn't get any better than that for me.
Dude,
so
it's really
it's kind of like a split. You have a musical answer and a non-musical answer.
No, that's a really beautiful answer, man. Thank you.
That's where I feel most comfortable, is on stage playing music with people, or playing music at a restaurant, doing a duo, playing music with a big band. It doesn't matter. I love doing gigs. I've always loved doing gigs. That's where I learn the most, playing music, and that's where I feel the most comfortable.
Something about yourself people might be surprised to hear or find a little odd.
Boy, there's so many things.
Well, that's bold. That's good, man.
A little odd. It's not odd, but I have tremendous respect for nature, and I love to be in nature.
That's great.
Probably one of the reasons I don't live in New York, because I grew up in Wisconsin on a farm that was semi-retired, and my father instilled in me love for nature, and I hate to see what's happening with the environment today.
I know, man.
People just
so bad. The ocean.
Yeah. Oh man, it's one cringing thing after another, and I'm really sad to hear about all the EPA regulations that our current president has rolled back. And man, the clock is running out for humanity. The way we treat this world, there's just no respect. And I'm really worried about that. So I'm a worried person who cares about the environment, and people who throw trash out the window of their cars. God, that just bugs the shit out of me.
Yeah, it's just not necessary, man.
There's no reason to just think that the world is a big trash bin, just sad.
I know, man. That is not cool. You got to take care of this place. Hey, you
Hey,
mentioned
even like when I'm riding the subway in New York City and I see somebody leave like a coffee cup or something, I'm like, man, why can't you
man,
just
get your right. It's a trash bin right outside in the lot in the station.
oh
No,
that
man. I don't get that. Well, you mentioned your dad. Most important thing your dad taught you:
just that. I mean,
love of
love
nature.
and respect for the nature and the world, and uh, he had his own set of problems as I do as a father, but he was a great father. I mean, he used to take us on
What do you
fishing
do
trips
for a
and
living?
camping. He worked for the state of Wisconsin Department of Transportation, so he did a lot of different jobs. He put up road signs. He painted the center lines on the highways. Uh, he did surveying, and then the end of his career, he was in charge of the people who would do those jobs.
Cool.
So, after he got out of the army, he served in Korea. He was happy to grab a job working for the state of Wisconsin.
Sure.
He always had health insurance for us, and I have two brothers and a sister, and my grandfather lived with us. So for quite a bit of my elementary school and high school, my grandfather was living with us. So we had a big house with just one bathroom for 7 people.
Oh my God. Wow.
So if anything, my dad taught me respect for nature, and he loved music, even though he didn't play music. And we would, go to Minnesota State Fair and hear bands play. And I don't know, he was just a great guy, and he was a great role model as a father.
Very cool. I always see there was many advantages to growing up in New York, but having left it, there's a lot of things that were really disadvantaged, I realize. And one of them, like I'll see these state fairs
Mm-hmm.
or the little community Friday night things
Right.
where you have an opportunity to get close to people and share. Even in some of the towns here in Tampa, like Safety Harbor, every Friday, it's a small little town nearby. They have a thing third Thursday or third Friday, I think, of every month. And St. Pete has like third Friday or fourth Friday or something. That's nice, man.
Yeah.
That's real. And the nature stuff, man. Like, I'm fascinated and I have so much respect for like birds and like even squirrels, and because I didn't grow up with any of that shit.
Right. Exactly.
Grass. I didn't, people thought, do you play golf? I didn't see grass till I was 30, I mean, I didn't play golf. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about living in, you don't have that, sixth sense. Maybe you don't have that edge, but I think that the baggage that comes along with that is probably not meant to be placed in childhood when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
That's something you can get later on in life. You don't need to get an edge when you're like 9, it's just not the place. And I think that there's a lot to be said about growing up in a town like Eau Claire and having that sort of stuff, Friday night football games at the high school,
Mm-hmm.
that's cool, man. I think so anyway,
Exactly. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the small town feel,
No, it's nice. I mean, I would have loved to have something like that. Well, Friday night, we were in the stairwell smoking weed. I mean, that's,
And now you can do it again, probably.
Yeah. What kind of development was that? Most important thing your mom taught you?
Boy, she was great. She was my biggest, I mean, she wanted me to take guitar lessons, and, it was her convincing the local music store to take me as a student when I was 8, and the local guitar teacher didn't want to teach me unless I had a couple of years of piano under my belt. So she convinced him, and
that is cool.
Just like, if I go to lessons with him and make sure he, practices, will you take him? Because I just kept badgering her about doing lessons, and finally,
she knew how much it meant to you that it would be you'd rise to the occasion.
This is something I wanted to do, and so without her like stepping in at an early age, trying to make sure I stayed focused and did my work, and she would actually, when I was practicing guitar, she would whistle along with the tunes I was trying to play.
Oh my God, that is so cool.
Yeah, it
What
was
a
really
cool mom.
So so without that, early kind of push from her,
That's great.
I might not have, kept at it. A lot of people just quit playing when their fingers start to hurt, because the steel strings and everything. So,
Sure.
but yeah, she had a great love of music, and she always had NPR playing in the house, and I heard a lot of strange classical music growing up. She was really into 20th century stuff, and then she sang in the church choir, and I ended up playing guitar in elementary school, and the church like combo that we had.
That's cool, man.
Early experiences of playing music with other people, it's important. So,
Are your folks still around?
my mom is still with us. My dad passed away in 2006.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, he checked out hard. He had Parkinson's with
Man, so
dementia.
sorry.
It's like the cocktail of death. It's really bad, but and he had it for quite a while, and he I can't imagine what the medication is like today.
Is that something that he picked up through exposure to something in the service, maybe?
We always wondered if it had something to do with the chemicals that he breathed when he was painting the highway roads, because
right.
I think it still does. The paint has this reflective glass beads in it.
Sure, yeah.
They always had to mix the stuff before they sprayed it. So who knows?
Yeah.
It's just one of those things like Alzheimer's. They really don't have a definitive answer of how people get the disease. So,
Right.
or even cancer. There's just I hope in the next maybe by the end of my lifetime, they figure some of these things out.
Yeah.
And my mom is still around. She just turned 80.
Oh, that's good. So she's relatively young.
She's relatively young.
That's cool.
She's bought a new place, and she's going to move into a smaller apartment style.
Claire?
Claire.
She's still there. Is your brother? You said you had two brothers and sisters. Are they still there?
My older brother lives about 10 minutes away from her, and my younger brother lives about 25 minutes away. And then my sister lives near Minneapolis. So again, all three of them are pretty relatively close. I'm the one who's the farthest away.
Do you get to go back there occasionally?
We get to go back at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. We go back for Christmas. And
your kids must like that.
Yeah,
they must have liked it even more so when they were growing up, going back there.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
It's great to visit, and we have a great time. Family's important.
Yeah, very much so, man. You have any non-musical superpowers?
Non-musical superpowers. I am good at soldering. I love to fix input jacks and wires that have come disconnected. It is one of my superpowers.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
My dad showed me how to solder when I was in high school. So the first thing I did was disassemble a radio that wasn't working, because I wanted to know how the parts went together.
Yeah, of course. That's cool, man.
I have a small amount of electronics ability that I can fix, like a pedal that a wire has disconnected, or a battery compartment or something like that. That it's been very helpful to fix stuff.
Yeah, especially as a guitarist.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a superpower, but it's sort of
superpower. Any hobbies outside of music?
I just love being in nature and walking, and taking a walk in the woods. I also like a small amount of woodworking here and there if I have to fix a table, I love being like a handyman, and that's something I also inherited from my father. He was in addition to working for the state of Wisconsin, he was a handyman. He could fix just about anything. He could fix a car, he could fix a door hinge, you name it. Small electronics. He was great at all that stuff.
Cool stuff to learn from him. And last question, Pete, what's been the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years? And how much of that has been intentional, and how much has just been a part of aging?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm still me. I still have a pretty happy outlook on playing music and being a musician. The hardest thing for me is just getting over the fact that I am getting older, and that if I don't get a job because I am older and I look older, to try not take it personally, because that's a really hard
That's tough in your business, man,
Oh,
because
man.
it's there's overt discrimination for age,
Right.
sex. I mean, it's like, yeah.
So that's, I mean, it's, you try not to think like that might be a factor why I didn't get that gig or
Yeah.
something. But like you say, I mean, there's always something else to look forward to. You don't know when you're going to get the call to do whatever. So
Right.
hopefully something else comes in and I just get something else. And I've been pretty lucky that way, you know, just to keep battling through my career.
Well, dude, I wish you nothing but continued success. Let me tell people where to find you, and please, the next record you drop, give me a phone call, man. You'll come back on here. I'd love to turn people onto your music. Everybody check out Pete McCann's music. You can find, he's got a great website. It's PeteMcCann.com, MCCANN.com. How the hell did you get that website? I gotta believe there's like a billion Pete McCanns in the U.S. In New England alone, there's probably.
Yeah.
How the hell?
Early on when everyone was first striking out and getting websites, my wife was on the ball and she said, "We got to get you this website." So my friend helped me secure the domain name, and fortunately, I've had it since then.
That's great. Very lucky, man.
You always got to renew your subscription before it runs out.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Well, you can nowadays, I don't know, most, I think domain hosts, it's automatic. You can just,
right.
Yeah. Exactly. Check out Pete McCann's music. It's PeteMcCann.com. He's got all of his music available on his website. You can stream it. He's got some great videos on there of him playing. He's also on all the social media, Facebook and Instagram, and he's got links from his website. Jazz clinics, are you putting any, or when you put them on, are they posted on there on your social media?
No, usually those are off air, but I mean, that might be something to consider in the future, like doing a broadcast on Facebook or something, like a Facebook Live.
Yeah, man, do it.
I'll try to remember the next time I'm doing something like that. But
yeah, I definitely want to do that.
Sometimes, like especially high schools, like they don't want you getting down on some high school kid and then having that broadcast all over the internet. So that might be problematic. But in a college situation, it might be cool to see what that's all about.
Oh man, to listen, you sissies. I mean, you know, just tell them, listen, I'm not here to diaper you. Anyway, Pete is a really good music teacher. If you're interested in taking lessons, he works with intermediate and up jazz students. So if you cannot play a G chord, do not call Pete. Basically, there's a contact tab on your website that they can connect with you for that, I'm assuming?
Yeah, in the front page, there's a message box that says drop Pete a line.
Great.
And just fill that out and put your name and your email, and then I'll get right back to you.
Great. Yeah, just let them know where you're at and what you're looking for. And that's it, man. Any final words of wisdom?
Keep practicing.
There you go.
Always look forward. Try not to dwell on your mistakes as a musician. And remember, it's a lifelong process.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate your time. It was really good talking with you. Great getting to know you. And thanks again, man.
Thank you for doing this, man. I've been 550. That's impressive. That's great. That's incredible.
Well, thank you, man. That, and how much is the Subway? $1.50 now? What is the Subway now? $3. Is it $3? $3
for a single use ride.
Wow. That's a lot, man. And I saw, is it like $15 to cross the bridge or something like that?
It is. It's $12.50 with Easy Pass. So.
Oh, thank God. All that money you're saving. What are you going to do with that? You know,
yeah,
holy shit.
That's one of the reasons why my wife and I are considering moving back to the other side, you know.
Over to the city side?
Yeah, but you know.
Oh, does she work over there?
No, she works in New Jersey. But the problem is they're going to pass this congestion pricing thing, which is really going to screw a lot of musicians who don't necessarily live in Manhattan.
Wow. Oh, you're going to get penalized for coming into the city.
Yeah.
I saw that. I read that. Or you're going to have to park your car up on 72nd Street and Broadway and then take the subway down.
I've actually done that quite a few times just to avoid paying $30 or $40 to park my car if the gig starts at 5 o'clock, you know. But
man, you're lucky if it's only $30 to $40 to park your car.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, that's even using an app to reduce the price from sometimes $75. So I don't know, man. They're pricing artists out of Manhattan. You know, nobody can afford to live there. And then now certain parts of Brooklyn, nobody can afford to live in.
That's what I heard.
It's crazy.
It's really funny. Where did we stay last time? We stayed in Midtown, which I hate. I never stay in Midtown, but I think we booked on Points or something, and a really nice hotel. But I hate Midtown, and I was just looking through shit. It was like $125 a night to park your car in the garage. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Imagine you're there 5 days. It's like a fucking mortgage payment or something. Anyway, man, thanks, Pete. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. That'd be very cool of you. Thanks so much to Pete McCann for coming by. Please support Pete's music. Go to his website at PeteMcCann.com. Listen to what he's doing. Support what he's doing. Pete McCann, PeteMcCann.com. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice. Right? Be nice. Go play your guitar. Practice.
Go practice.
Be nice. Go play your guitar and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out.
Thank you, Craig.